Hey gang, welcome back to Joe Daddy's Garage. Guess what? I'm still working on the Cobra jet. Surprise, right? Okay, listen. I showed you the last video where I'd welded on the quarter panels, the deck filler panel, and of course the seat divider that goes underneath all of that. And all of that went really well. I still have some blending, or a lot of blending to do to smooth out those welds. I have been working on that slowly. You know, a little bit of time here, a little bit of time there. It all gets done. Today's video is part 32 in the Cobra Jet series, also known as Slither. And what I want to work on is the rain gutters and also the forward header panel that goes between the windshield posts and of course where the roof attaches to. Now, I was looking at this a little earlier. I know I had expressed or shown a segment in that video, the last video, how I had set the rain gutter up in place. And that was actually incorrect. It goes there, but it goes there in a different way. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to make sure it's in the right spot. Now, the kit that I'm putting in is from CJ Classic. So, let's see. That looks like the part number DRC4, I believe. Of course, made in Taiwan. And it has a secondary number, Ford Mustang 6970 door drip rail fastback 4-piece set. Now what that means is you get 4 pieces because that's what it takes to make this work. You get 2 of these which go in kind of the boomerang area, which is right there, and of course the main rain gutter piece. Now I'm going to show you how this is going to go on, but I'm also going to show you how it goes on based on the original Mach 1 that I have sitting in the back of my shop. That has been a great resource for me. I know that I had what was left of the original car that I started with, and I could use that as a reference as well, but it's so nice to have an original car that I can take measurements from and make sure everything's in the right spot. So let me kind of give you an idea of what the plan is. Okay, so this piece goes back here. There's a screw hole that's already in the this little filler piece that I welded in, and basically that's going to fit there. It's going to take a little reshaping. This isn't the sharpest curve, let's say. It doesn't necessarily match this as it should, so I'll have to just kind of work that into that position. Now, when I'd shown this piece in the last video, I basically just kind of set it up in place and it stayed. The tension of it held it in place and it looks fine. However, there is some difference in what's going to happen. This flange here, this long portion, actually goes between the roof and on top of the inner structure. So it's going to tuck underneath. Now the difficulty with that is, how do you place it? Because I need to have that in the exact spot. Whenever it comes time to put the roof on, it has to fit this shape perfectly. It has to drop into this channel basically perfectly. So if I have this too far in or too far out, it's going to affect how the roof sits in here. So what I plan to do, and I'm using the other car as a reference, what I plan to do is take some measurements from this pinch weld, that'll be part of it, and measure out to where the gutter sits, and that's going to give me a depth measurement. That's one idea. Another one is, I need more things to hit with this. Another one is, this rain gutter only fits as close as the flange here on the A-pillar. It can't go in any further, really. I mean, it could, but it would have to be make some modifications. Up here, this flange actually dies out. If I lift the roof, this is the stop point for this overlap piece on the A-pillar. Now what I found is, if I set this up in place, I need to hit more things with this. And what I found is, this little cutout here will basically interact with this. However, when I put it against that, it makes the rain gutter short on the end where it needs to meet the rest of the flange. And basically, what I mean by that is, this is the end of the flange that they have. And what it's supposed to do is have the rain gutter end right there. But when I have this upper portion, when this hits that little cutoff, it pulls this back slightly. So it sets it like that and leaves this about a 1/4 inch sticking out. So what that means is I need to modify either this piece slightly or modify the flange on the upper part. So just some things that I want to show you with this. Otherwise, this section here is going to get welded to the upper part of the inner structure. Let's take a look at the other Mach 1 so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So here's the other car, and you can see right there that the rain gutter basically is flush or even with that little flange sticking out. Comes up here. This area is kind of, let's say, short or vacant. Like this thickness fades away up here. And that's because the trim only needs to attach to this portion and this portion. This is just kind of free space. So it comes back, and of course that corner needs to end on that corner of the transition where it comes down. Now, if I aim upward here and I show you that, you can see this is on top of the inner structure. So the rain gutter kicks up and sits on top of that. Hopefully there's enough light there that you can see that okay. And then this portion right here, that's where it interacts. That's the flange of the inner part of the A-pillar. So right there is where it's going to have to interact. So I want to make sure everything is going to line up and make this length correct. And then of course this corner correct as well. And then here is this other piece. There's a screw there, but it's welded on up, and it'll interact with this the upper portion. So I'm going to do some mocking up and test fitting and make sure that this is in the right spot. And once it's in, it's in. And then I have to set the roof on and of course weld it. The plan will be, if I had a spot welder, I would obviously want to pinch weld that together. But what I will probably do is drill some small holes on the bottom side of the rain gutter and just weld up onto the flange for the roof. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so I've set the roof panel out of the way, and essentially this has to sit on top of this portion of the inner structure. And this will show you what I'm talking about, I hope, this flange right here. I try to bring that forward, I run out of room, and it leaves it short down at the bottom, as I was mentioning earlier. So again, I will have to do a little trimming and make sure it's exactly where I want it. I'll show you the lower portion that I was talking about. Hopefully you can see that. There's a little bit sticking out, which means this has to come downward. And it won't take much, a little bit of trimming. And probably what I'll end up doing is either running some screws through these holes that are up here just to hold it in place, or I could even just put a couple tack welds, and then I can test fit the roof as well to make sure it's going to go on correctly. What I did find is this flange, it actually gets a little bit wide here at the back, and what that does is it keeps the rain gutter away slightly. So I may have to taper this down to make sure it's in in the right plane, and then this will sit properly. It's all part of the plan. Test fit test fit, right? Okay, this is what I was talking about here. This, you can hopefully see it's got this weird kind of shape to it. And when you put this up against it, it doesn't interact very well. It wants to fight with you. And so what I want to do is trim that just a little to make sure I have clearance. And then this part here is a little bit wide, so I'm just going to just knock that off. Okay, so I still have a small amount hanging out down here. So I want to be able to bring this forward a little more. That evened it up. And now what I found is on the other car, if I remember correctly, the distance, oh, you know what? This has to go up a little. That's going to cause a problem. That has to go up against that. Hold on. Not done. There we go. Okay, so I have a couple things here that help me out. One is this flange stops this one from going inboard any further. This lines up very nicely up here on top, and it also hits against the inside of this. And basically, I can't compress it really any further than that at this point. But what I found was, when I did a drop measurement from the flange on the inside out, so there's about 2 3/4. There's 2 3/4. So that is a good measurement as far as I'm concerned. So what I want to do, because I need to obviously make sure this is going to fit right, without welding it, I'm just going to run some screws in. Hold that in place. Hold that in place. The rest of this will kind of take care of itself in a way. That's even. Now this part here has to be pressed together. Let's see if I have a pair of vice grips available. Whoop, don't want to do that. Don't want to distort it. Okay. Voila. There we go. And then of course, this piece will go here. Now this part of it doesn't line up like it should. I may have to put a little cut line up inside so I can rotate this over. This should interact with this part of the roof, and then also it's going to overlap this. So when this is in down here, it all kind of overlaps and lines up. So you can see this part is supposed to be up against that curve. So I will do a little more modification of this just to make sure this comes over. There's no reason this should not, because you can see it's got this like joggle. There's a joggle, and here's a joggle. I don't think this goes behind that. I guess it's possible, but I'll verify that before I do the final weld. I still have some grinding to do inside here on these spot welds. Yeah, maybe I'll verify that before I do a completion, because this has a subtle curve to it as well. All right, good. I'm happy with that. All right, so this piece that goes right here, this filler piece, I had to reshape it a little bit to make it match what I wanted it to do as far as this flange running all the way down. Now, the problem I'm running into, and I'll show you this, is I have the original, what we call boomerang, right? And if I set this in place, and this is why you test fit, obviously, it'll fit and line up for the most part. However, there is some shape discrepancy. And what I mean by that is this boomerang, this old one, seems to have a bit of a curve to it. And the new one is not only narrower here, but this curve it's more subtle, okay? So when I put this piece in, what I find is it'll line up pretty good up here, but it also sticks out a little. And you know, when you try to manipulate this, you can see it changes how the angle is. And the reason for that is this part right here tends to stick out. So the focus needs to be, what's the end result? Like if I leave this fit like it is, I can tuck it in, but it changes location, or changes the angle, let's say. So what I will likely have to do here is grind this down. I won't do it just yet, but I will grind this down to reshape this so that this has somewhere to go. Because obviously the end result of how this looks and fits is more important than how much metal is left over. The other thing, and I'll show you from another angle, this part up here doesn't quite do what I want it to, but there's not much I can do about that. So again, I'll set in the new piece, and you can see it wants to kind of fight me on the shape. Up here, it's important that this lines up, because there will be a cap piece that goes over top of this and then matches to the drip rail. So that alignment needs to be really, really close, and I think it is. And it doesn't look bad. I could probably leave it like that just so I have this gap correct. So maybe I won't grind it yet, because that doesn't happen. It doesn't have to happen until I'm getting ready to let's say, mount these pieces. So yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Just pointing out there are some things you can adjust or modify when you're trying to put one of these in. Okay, the saga continues. as I'm doing this, and I'm again test fitting everything in place, what I found is this piece, as I mentioned before, the angle appears wrong, and that really relates to how it interacts with the roof panel, because this has to stick out. So if you take this piece and you have it lined up with the inner piece that is already kind of inboard, it will not attach to the roof panel. And what I want it to do is come over to here so these two pieces can be welded together. To do that, I have to modify this piece. And I mentioned it earlier that I may end up having to cut this, and I think I'm going to, because I can't pull it any further out without it pulling the gutter with it. So there has to be a relief cut up here. So I'm going to cut this and try to manipulate it over so I can get a better alignment on these pieces. The alternative would be, I guess, to just cut that off and just put this piece in there and be done with it. But I'm going to try it and see if I can't make it work. Okay, I like that better. The other problem that I'm going to run into is this part of the roof is just, the flange is just a little bit wide. And I may end up having to just trim that slightly. And the reason I say that is because, again, the boomerang, when you put it in, has to line up with this part, and I can't go inboard right now. I don't know if you can see that very well, but this is, it's out. And so I'm going to have to grind off of this edge right here. There we go. All right. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. So that's going to help with a few things. One, I talked about grinding off down here. I'm probably not going to have to do that now that I have that lined up much better. You know, it's kind of weird. I think the original piece that went here was all one piece, I think. This overlap doesn't really gain anything, but it's how they made it, and I'm probably just going to have to run with it. Yeah. Massage these pieces up a little. And that's where it's going to go. Much better. Now the other thing I want to show you is up here at the front. So when you put the roof in place, and you clamp this down, it kind of pushes out. And what I've been looking at is the consistency of the rain gutter. So right now, you know, the bottom edge, I don't have it in frame, is pretty good up to about this point, and then it wants to push out a little. And obviously you want everything to fit together properly, but you don't want this to be too wide. Otherwise it's not going to look right. So I will probably grind this down a little bit as well to get the rain gutter in just a little tighter. The But yeah, this is working out. And you can see the difference in how wide the flange is here for the roof versus what the gap actually is. And so I don't know yet. I know the seam sealer is going to cover all that, so it's not that critical, but I like it to look like it should even without the seam seal. So I'm going to dress that down some and be able to move this in just slightly. Otherwise, I'm happy with that. So I have the rain gutter clamped in place and screwed in place. I'm going to do one final test fit, make sure everything's going to line up. I know everybody's going to give me grief that I don't have a little spot welder, but I really can't afford to have one or get one right now. So I did drill these little holes, and I will just weld those in, grind them smooth, and it'll be fine. So let's get the roof in place as best as I can. And I found that to get it inside of this rain gutter is a little tricky. So I don't know if we can see that very well, but it's kind of like you have to pop the roof into it. Again, one of those tasks that would be easier with a couple people. I know it'll fit. I've had it in there before. There we go. Okay. So if I just put a clamp in here just to hold it down, this should line up, and it does. And what I want to do is weld this part of it first so it doesn't move, and make sure that alignment is good. Okay, it sits down in the rain gutter up here. Get this to go down in. I may have to massage that in just a little. You know, none of these things are perfect, but we can get them close. And can't bite into that because the inside of the A-pillar is in the way. So, okay, I know this will knock down in, but I just want to make sure it's going to fit in the gutter like it should. And I'm pretty sure we're good. Okay. Got it clamped down here. This could come in maybe just a hair. Yeah. There we go. Okay. Now there's some, yeah, that'll come down. Okay. Again, I'm not ready to weld the roof on yet, but I got to have the gutter in place before I do anything else. So once all this is satisfied, and I'll put that screw in here and double check to make sure the boomerang fits, then I'll come back in and weld all this in place. I know this piece has a screw down here, and on the original car there's a screw here, but it's not something you're going to remove. These things are part of the car, and so this will get welded in. I still will put a screw there just for cosmetic look, but everything else is just going to get welded in like it should. A couple other things I want to look at. You know, I talked about this gap up here and how wide it is. Well, I still have the original, what's left of the original car, and this is actually pretty wide. So that's probably going to be accurate. Pretty wide there. In fact, this is how bad this car was. There, I can peel back the roof piece and you can see the overlap of the rain gutter right there. And then of course you have the mount here for the wing window, and that is just this piece just kind of slides in and these screws go up through it. And that piece, I was looking at this earlier, and that's what those holes are for. So everything is looking like it's correct as far as I can see. So I will get the rain gutter welded in and then work on the other side. And of course I still have the header panel up here that has to be welded into the structure, but that's not going anywhere. It's not going to change anything. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. Very happy with that. All right, so before I welded the header panel in, I did wire brush it, clean it up, and painted it with Rust-Oleum, and then I welded it in and knocked down the welds so that I have a good transition all the way at the front. I have the rain gutter on the driver's side just mocked into position, and it looks like it's going to fit as well as the other side. Shouldn't be a concern with that. The main thing I need to do is get holes punched in the forward flange. And then of course there will be the overlap here, so I could either punch holes or weld the edge, but I'll probably punch holes in it. Back here again, punch a series of holes, and the same thing on the rear flange. So at this point what I want to do is finish getting this rain gutter in place. I'm not going to film that one. It's the same process as the other side. And while I was doing some grinding, I went ahead and started knocking down the welds on the cowl. There's plenty of welds that need to be knocked down, so I'm going to take care of that as the opportunity arises. But I'm feeling pretty good about all of this right now, and hopefully have this roof on before too long. One more thing I'll point out. What I did on the rain gutter was drill a series of small holes and then welded those, and then I have a series of small holes in this flange I plan to weld up through and then grind that down. I figured that would be easier than trying to do something on top. Yes, I know I need a pinch welder. That would be great, but I don't have one of those, so I do what I have to do. Very good.
Nice.
Okay, it's all clamped down and ready to weld on, and I'm very happy with how this looks. A lot of welds will have to take place, but that's all part of the process. Now I will point out there is a lot involved with this. When you look at these, you don't think about the rain gutter and these other pieces and the boomerang and all that stuff. So obviously a lot of test fitting to make this work, and overall I'm pretty happy with the results. I see that like this sticks out just a little, but that'll push right down with a screwdriver and weld on. Not a big deal there. I do plan to weld. I have a plug weld up here, and I'm going to weld this edge. I should point out as well, whenever I welded these rain gutters on, yes, a resistant welder or resistance type welder would have been great for that. And I had some small holes here, and they turned out to be a little too small. So I ended up welding not only the hole but the edge. I had one or two that came loose, but it's not going anywhere. Now it's solid. So what I did is the holes I have on the underside, I made them bigger. And I will make sure that I get good weld in those and fill those in. At some point I'll probably have a pinch welder, but I don't right now. So let's get to welding. Now, I've said it before, I really like this arc captain. I'm going to swap out the wire. You see I have this light on, so I need to change out the wire because I have 30 thousandths and I want to put in 025 so I can weld the rain gutters. So I've already cut the tip off of the end of the wire, and all I got to do is pull this out, find a hole on the side of the spool here just to feed the wire back through, keep it from coming loose. I'm going to flip over the roller. Really easy to do on these compared to the other welders that I've shown you. So just take that out. I'm going to flip this over to the smaller, flip that over, line up the tang, thread that on, get my 025 wire. Yeah, that's my 025. Get a little lineup tab on this roller up here. Put that on that. Cut off the bent portion. Feed that back through. This is so much nicer than the other welder that I've shown you, the other brand, because this is all open, easy to access, And then I can do this a couple ways. I can feed the wire like this, or I can turn the machine on or pull this trigger and feed it. This is pretty easy. I can feed a lot of it through that way. Close that up. And if I squeeze the trigger on the gun, I have the gas off. It'll feed, and I think it'll recognize that I'm not making contact, so it feeds it faster. Make it easier, I'll just pull the tip out. There it is. There we go. Now to do the rain gutters. All right, everything is welded. I welded the roof to the A-pillar, let's say. So that is welded. And then of course I welded up into the rain gutter. All of this around the perimeter. And it's not going anywhere. So happy to have all that on. There may be a few places, like there's a little hollow spot. I'll touch that up later. But solid as can be. All good. All good. Now I will point out, when I was doing the rain gutters, I changed out the welding wire, and what I forgot to do is change the thickness of the wire on the machine. And so on the driver's side, it was struggling a little bit because it was trying to put too much energy into that wire, and it was basically just burning it up before it ever got in there, made contact. So I had to step back a second and change the wire numbers on the welder so that it would register properly. So when you're doing synchronous welding in particular, that is a feature. It's great, but you have to remember to change out the wire. So at this point, yeah, I'm pretty happy with all that. And of course, some of the things I will have to do is weld in both of the seat pans still. And that's really it for the interior here. And then I'll come back up front. I've got to work on these pieces, get them attached. The aprons are not attached yet, so I want to make sure those are in alignment. Get the core support in, and then the braces that are going to go for the strut rods. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. It's looking good. Here's something else. This thing is fantastic. This is a little shop vac from Evolution Power Tools. This company has provided me with this, and I love it. This thing has been so helpful. Battery operated. It's got an extension, and this is a wet or dry vac. So, and I believe you can actually blow with it. So check it out. I have links for this in the description below. Evolution Power Tools. So have a look. Okay, just one final walk around. Again, I'm so excited about this, that it's all together now and I don't have a bunch of pieces laying around on the floor or on stands. And I'm looking forward to getting that section all put together next. Okay, that'll be the end of this video. Again, I am so excited to be making big steps on this project, and I'm looking forward already to making the next video. If you're interested in any of the products that I showcase on this video, I have links in the description below. So I have links for a discount on the Arc Captain welding machine. I have a link for these on Amazon. I also have links for the Evolution power tools. And I encourage you to use those links. There are discounts there, and they also help me out by getting just a little percentage back if you're looking at buying something like that. Also, I have t-shirts on Teespring, or Spring as it's called now, so you can check those out as well if you're interested. If not, that's okay too. I still appreciate you being here. Now, most importantly, I want to thank my patrons who continue to support me and help keep the lights on and keep me fed. Their support is unprecedented as far as I'm concerned. They really encourage me to keep making these videos, and I want to keep making these videos. So if you're interested in becoming a patron, there's also a link in the description below. And if not, I get it. That's fine. But I still appreciate everybody who is here, leaving comments and thumbs up and all those sorts of things. And that's all I can really say to any of you at this point. But once again, thank you for being here. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Pew!
Hey, you want me to pick those up for you?
Yeah, I was just double checking. It looks like they sell for $47 a piece.
Okay, and they want 60 a pair.
60 a pair, okay. I mean, if you can get them for 50, that's even better, but it's probably worth it. We just have to figure out how to get them here.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I'll see what I can do. If I can't do that, is 60 okay?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Then we'll figure out later. I mean, by the time you add up, the two of them would be $90 plus shipping. So, yeah. I mean, just grab them and hang on to them until we can get together.